Back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Con. Rich Walsh, Gene Collier's here with me tonight. And if you need a roof, make sure you call Ireland Contracting. They're the best in the business. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Remember that number, 1-800-NEW-ROOF. They not only do roofs, they do everything. And they're #1 in Pittsburgh at it. Windows, sidings, gutters, anything you need, call Ireland Contracting. I know I have them on speed dial. Gene, you call them for just about anything.
Everybody needs a roof.
That's right.
Grooming, whatever.
Yep. If you want to call us right now, 1-800.
And who wouldn't?
Not 1-800-NEW-ROOF. You would get Ireland Contracting. To get us, 412-575-2600 on the Borders and Borders hotline. And we're going to go right out to the hotline, and we're going to go out to, we'll keep the conversation going. Gene's favorite subject tonight, Le'Veon Bell. Bob, Indiana, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for calling.
Hey, I don't really want to talk about Bell so much as the people that drew up the contract. I mean, isn't there a better way of drawing a contract up that the team got the shaft? And is all franchise, like all teams that put a franchise tag on their player, do they use the same contract as Pittsburgh did with Bell, or do they have, their own contract per se, or is it a blanket contract for franchise players for the league?
Bob, I'll let you clear it up. I mean, I'll let Gene clear this up for you. A franchise, this is negotiated by the CBA and the NFL.
In the CBA, it's a certain percentage of the player's contract from the year before, like 120% the first time, I think 140% the second time. So there's no negotiating the price. And
you're paid an average of what, the top five in the league, I think it is, at that position, and then you get a raise every year no matter what. Right. That's how it works. It's the same across the board for any player that uses, or any team that uses the franchise tag. It also, Le'Veon Bell's, if someone else franchised a running back right now, it would be much lower than Le'Veon Bell's, because when they franchised him, they had to use Adrian Peterson's inflated salary that year, and I think he was making $19 million. Right. So that counted as one of the top 5. Right. Now it wouldn't, but it would be a little bit lower. So that's why he's making so much money right now. And if they were to franchise him again next year.
If the question is, are the Steelers at fault for setting this number in the wrong place? No, they have no control over what the number is, except as a member of a 32-team league that inadvertently sets the overall, bracket, if you will.
Do you think they'll readdress this now, this franchise issue, after what's going on here? Or do you think teams might be reluctant to use the franchise tag now?
Well, I mean, it's always a bit of a gamble, but I suppose, they could look at that system, but it has to be part of the next CBA, and I'm not sure when it runs out. Is it 2021?
I think it's 2021. And, most players would be happy to be franchised and make guaranteed top 5 salary, an average of the top 5 salary, not Le'Veon Bell.
But not most free agents. That's the difference.
Yeah, and that's they want the guaranteed money throughout 4 or 5 years. And I think that's been.
This is another area where owners have hurt themselves. I mean, NFL owners never even dealt in guaranteed money. That was baseball's foible. But now NFL owners are starting to come around to this in competing for players. And, the players and agents are onto it, and that's really all they want to talk about is guaranteed money. And I don't blame them, in a sport that's this violent.
All right, speaking of guaranteed money, Gene, how much guaranteed money does Chris Boswell have right now? Because this is a guy that potentially could be on the cutting block, I would imagine, if he has another performance like he has one of these games.
He's really only a game or two away from, the Steelers kicking auditions. And it does seem to be the money that has kind of unnerved him. Unless, there could be any kind of explanation, but that's the only one that people can think of. It's the only one anybody knows about. He's got to have a game where he stops missing kicks. I mean, we haven't seen that yet. He didn't have a field goal till the 3rd game. He missed a couple, and he missed another one in the 3rd game. So, he's not kicking well.
And the extra points, I think, even though they moved him back, that's a major concern. He already has 2 missed extra points. All right, back out to the phone lines. We're going to go out to we'll go out to JB in Squirrel Hill. What's up, JB?
Oh, hey. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for calling.
All right, so I want to talk about the 2 football coaches here in town. First of all, I really hope Heather Lyke has an itchy trigger finger, because this Narducci, I mean, this guy is a total idiot. I've never seen anybody make worse adjustments at halftime. He's a moron. The other thing is, The Steelers, I think they messed up. They should have fired Tomlin after they lost to New England like 2 years ago in the playoffs. I mean, I think they owe it to the fans to try to find a guy who can win another Super Bowl, because I don't think this guy has it in him. And Ben is almost done. I mean, so.
I appreciate the call, JB. We'll start with Tomlin, I guess. I mean, I don't think they should fire this guy. I mean, he's one of the winningest coach, maybe one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL right now. I do understand where you're coming from, though, because this is taking a page out of the Penguins book, where Dan Bilesma had an incredible record, but just couldn't win the big one, and that's basically what we're talking about here.
Well, that was a ridiculous firing of Dan Bilesma for my money. I mean, Mike Sullivan's done a great job, obviously, but there was, in my view, no reason to fire Dan Bilesma. And the same is true of Mike Tomlin. If you're firing Mike Tomlin, you're essentially firing Don Shula at the height of his powers. That's where Mike Tomlin's record is after whatever this is, 11 seasons. He won more games in 11 seasons than anybody except Don Shula. Would you fire Don Shula? You'd be a fool to do that. But people want to do it. So, I mean, I can't help you.
Yeah, I don't understand that either. As for Pat Narduzzi, he's been underachieving since he's been here, essentially. Or you know, he had a first couple good years, but lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to. And, you know, he brought up a point about second half adjustments. I mean, they've been getting killed in second halves so far. And I forget what the number is, how much they've been outscored in the second halves, but I think it was like 73-10 or something.
Yeah. I don't pay enough attention to Pitt to really say. I'll just say this about Pat Narduzzi. He came here as a defensive expert, and the one thing that Pitt has not been good at his whole time here has been defense. But, you know, as to whether or not he's got to go or anything like that, I don't know. Pitt, you know, winds up beating some teams that they shouldn't beat, like Miami last year. So, I mean, I think Heather Lyke is a long way from, you know, taking a hard look at Pat Narduzzi.
Yeah, especially after she just gave him a 7-year extension last year. So, you know, I think the one thing I would like to say is grass is not always greener on the other side. You know, when you look at coaches like this, you saw what happened with Jamie Dixon. The program turned into a complete disaster at Pitt, and who knows what you would get if you fired Tomlin or Narduzzi. Who knows what's going to happen? I think one of the problems with Pitt right now has been the turnover at head coach and the turnover with administration, and that's been the main problem. So why fire this guy now?
That's what has made the Steelers what they are in terms of coaches. I mean, yeah, okay, Mike Tomlin's gone on, this will be his 8th year without a Super Bowl. Chuck Noll once went 13 years without a Super Bowl. Bill Cowher went 10. On what basis, what possible basis would you fire him? It's ridiculous.
For not winning a Super Bowl, but I wouldn't. They got the team, so let's see what happens this year under Ben.
Well, wait until he has a losing season. Could
he
have a
losing season yet? And you look at Cowher's. Cowher had 5 of them. Well, not 5 losing seasons. 5 years they didn't make the playoffs. So, all right, we're going to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls. Maybe some tweets coming up next. Stay right there.